about to bring on the positive vibe. Wherever we go, we are gonna do what makes us feel right.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. How is everyone? Great to see you. Welcome back to the Soul Purpose Show. Oh wow, it's June, and this is officially our best of show. We usually kind of reserve the last show of the year to make sure that we cover the best and worst of the month of June. I'm your host Keith. If you look to my right, my left, you'll notice that there's an empty chair. And the reason why the chair is empty is because I am solo today. I am here by myself in the studio. I'm scared. I'm lonely because I don't have my rib. I don't have my soulmate and our co-host Monica with me today. But for those of you who are watching, you can also see that I have joining me is two beautiful young ladies. One of them happens to be my daughter, and she's going to actually be my co-host for today. And I'm going to ask her to take herself off of mute. And her name is Alicia. Alicia, where are you? Why are you not here? Why are you not here with me, with your daddy?
Hi, everyone. It's Alicia. Some of you know me as Joy. Either it's fine. I am currently in Washington, D.C., moving out of my apartment, but don't fret, I'll be back in Tampa on Sunday to get on my father's nerves.
Yay!
Yay!
and I'll be so happy. I'm gonna let Alicia tell you guys a little bit more about herself here in a little bit. But I am thrilled. We are thrilled, I should say, because today for this Saturday show is really kind of a youth takeover. And I'm honored and excited to have joining us today, in addition to my daughter, an outstanding young journalist from right here, I should say, who are currently living and residing here in Tampa, but originally from Baltimore. And I'm gonna also ask her to take herself off of mute. And she's the engagement producer for the Tampa Bay Times, Monique Welch.
Yes.
How are you, young lady?
I'm doing good. How are you, Keith?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for joining the Soul Purpose Show. Thanks for joining us on this best of and worst of the month for the month of June show. And thanks for joining me and my daughter. So we're gonna have fun.
Thanks for having me. And hello, Alicia.
Hi.
Listen, guys, we're gonna have so much fun today. We're gonna talk about best and worst of some things for the month of June, things that popped up. But we're also going to take a break about halfway through the show. But in the meantime and in between time, I just want to thank all of our listeners, thank all of our followers. For those of you who are watching the show, we've been viewed over up to 4,000 times for some of our episodes, and we hope that you continue to support us, continue to hit like, continue to share, all that other kind of stuff. Monique can tell you a lot more about that than obviously I can. But let's start. Let's do this. Alicia, why don't you tell the audience a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Who am I? Who is
other than my daughter, which is the best
thing? Keith's daughter. When I was in Tampa, I lived under that shadow. I just couldn't wait to break free, which is why I'm now in Washington, D.C. I am recently finished up a contract with a school here as an operations manager. So now I am looking for more work. I love to spend time with my cat. I think my life is pretty boring outside. No, I love it here in DC. I'm in the education field.
Where'd you go to school?
So last year I graduated from the Harvard Graduate School of Education.
Boom.
Wonderful experience. And yeah, I've just been, living my 20-something-year-old life in a big city. And, sometimes I come home and help my father, do basic things like cook food and, wash his clothes and, make sure that, he doesn't, be alone.
Burn the house down.
Because Monica can't do everything by herself. She actually has a 4-year-old to take care of. So
Absolutely. Monique, why don't you tell the audience who you are and what you do?
Yes, absolutely. And before I forget, Alicia, since you're in DC, DMV stand up. I have to ask you, whether you answer now or later, what you think about mumbo sauce and go-go music. So
Oh,
myself, I'll
listen,
introduce myself. I'll let you ponder on that because I know this could get pretty intense. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself first. But yeah, so like you said, I am a journalist. I'm an engagement producer at the Tampa Bay Times. Um, Everybody asks me, what does that mean? I ask myself that sometimes as well. But basically, it means I do a little bit of everything. I'm kind of on the front lines of dispersing our content and our information to all of our platforms. Mainly, it's the biggest social media, so Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And then I also am kind of responsible for telling stories. I'm kind of like a web reporter, so I tell stories through digitally, through online initiatives, whether that's through our newsletters, push out our mobile alerts, our desktop notifications, like all that stuff. I'm just responsible for flashing you of all the news that we have. And as Keith knows, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And
so that's me. I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland. I've been here about 4 years. I had the pleasure of meeting Keith through my mentor, Ernest Hooper. Yeah, shout out goes to him, of course. But yeah, I had the pleasure of meeting Keith through him, and Keith did the honor of speaking on one of my most proudest stories, which is on code switching and the basically need for Black professionals to do so to succeed in the workplace. So he came in and shed some light on basically his experience coming up in different eras. So kind of had the millennial and the older perspective. So he did a phenomenal job, and he forever is one of my faves for that. So thank you.
And thank you. No, I really appreciate the shout out, and it was an honor just to be a part of that project. I know that this show, the theme is really, it's the Sole Purpose Show, but we actually focus on issues of importance and issues of entertainment to the Black culture intentionally, and that project and the work that you do is really intentional around telling our stories, and for that, on behalf of the culture, we appreciate we appreciate you. We appreciate
Thank you.
Hey, so for today, hopefully you guys got a best and worst list together for you. We want to just kind of dive right into some of the topics. I know that our audience is anxious to hear some of our perspective on things. What a crazy month. I mean, we did everything from cancel Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben. Who does that?
Oh my goodness.
I mean, yeah, I get why they did it. Do I think it's like the biggest demonstration of alignment with what I think the common Black person wants? No, I think it's the same thing everyone else is doing, like tweeting Black Lives Matter for the first time finally after when it started, 2012, all the way up until like saying like, oh, you get Juneteenth off. So I mean, do I think it was like absolutely necessary for the Black liberation? No, but was it a nice gesture? Yeah, I just hope that all of the energy isn't spent towards this rebranding and then it stops at that.
Interesting perspective, Monique. What do you think about ceremonial, symbolic kind of imagery changes and those kind of things to try to move the culture forward?
I think it's necessary. I would definitely applaud different companies and corporations that are doing so. But it's twofold. On the other hand, I'm checking their motives. Why are they doing this? Are they doing it because they have Black employees that they care about and that have spoken out about it? Are they doing this because this is a movement right now, and are they kind of just waiting to see, okay, when is this going to die down so we won't be the next company? Because the culture is like on fire right now. So companies are very sensitive and very scared at the same time. So everybody just kind of protect themselves as they should. So with that being said, I just feel like it is definitely necessary, but would it happen if we weren't at this time of civil unrest is my thing. So
yeah. I don't
that's
think
the only thing.
Yeah, I don't think it would. I think that, yeah, like you said, companies are shook right now. Everyone is trying to figure out what kind of change they can make. I know all of our inboxes have been flooded with every email possible from every, like, you ain't shopped there in like 5 years.
Oh my goodness.
And then it popped up in your inbox talking about, hey, Keith, hey, I just want to let you know, Black Lives Matter. Black lives do matter. I know you bought a keychain
because
from
they
us
still
like
want your
2 years
money.
ago. Right,
Absolutely.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so they kind of use this. I think it's being used as a marketing technique, which I you know, that kind of sucks because it's like we are now having a hard time knowing, you know, who to be loyal to.
Right.
Which is why I default to just buy black. You know, I think we, you know, which is actually on my best list for June.
Oh,
Boom, let's
I
go.
already knew you were gonna think of
Get
that.
into it.
My is that this resurgence of commitment to buying black I've noticed for June, and you know, it's one of those things where it's like, why weren't y'all buying black before? I think a lot of us were, but you know, I think now more than ever, especially seeing like how performative all these of our favorite companies have been, especially when they've previously been so problematic. I think we've just been really pushing. Like I've been seeing it on all of my social media. Like everyone was like, "Hey, you know, I got black on this, I got this," and it was, you know, from this black owned store. And it's not even just like the big name black brands. It's like, hey, you know, my homegirl, she actually has, and you know, support her. And next thing you know, this, you know, homegirl got 2,000 retweets, and people, you know, she sold out of her
small black businesses.
Exactly, small black businesses I think are really thriving right now, which was also important because of the pandemic. So I love it. I love that
you said that, because that was one of the first things on my best list. Is right now, like you said, we're seeing such a, I call it like an uprising of support for people buying black. And the one thing to note for me is just, it's not just us, you know, like it's not just black people for once being like, oh, support black or buy black. You know, the Tampa Bay Times, we put out a list of different black owned businesses in Tampa Bay that, you know, you can support. So I'm definitely proud of that, you know. And I've seen a lot of my colleagues and friends, you know, that are not African American or of color, really, you know, pushing this narrative. So that I can't be, as a journalist, you know, I'm through the roof. So that's one of my biggest, like I said, that was my first thing. I don't know if we're going through the list, but right after that, since we're, you know, on the topic of buying black, I also wrote that we're seeing an increased awareness and surrounding around Juneteenth.
Yes,
you know, a lot of celebrations. And some people that have never heard about it, learned about it. I mean, honestly, I'm embarrassed to say, but I learned about it for the first time last year. Yeah. That was my first time. Like, what is Juneteenth? Like, I remember somebody saying something, and you know, we've had this civil unrest, as everyone knows, for hundreds of years. Right. You know, it's just so now in our face because of these. You know, so So last year was when I first learned about it, and I was like, how come I never heard about this? Never learned about it. And then I really started to think, I'm like, okay, Monique, did you have a black educator in any of my, you know, K through 12 education? Not to say that would have made a difference, you know, whether or not, but still, I'm just like, it really forced me to think, like, okay, what was who would have even taught you about Juneteenth? Yeah. History book, yep. Or did they even know about it? You know, right. Like I literally just was like going through all these things. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. But you know, so that's to me one of the best things. You know, you see again, not just black people. There's an uprising of people wanting to celebrate this and recognize it as a holiday. There's different companies that we're giving our employees off. So that was just like, wow, like finally. So I'll give you. Matter July 4th is up to you, but just the fact that it's being recognized on this larger scale was a win.
Absolutely. And I'll give you a little perspective, because I'm probably old enough to have been one of your teachers at some point, or educators at some point. And my own personal perspective is very similar. So we grew up learning about, you know, African American history by, you know, the story of slavery and et cetera, kind of, you know, back through the civil rights, because that's the only thing that that black people have ever been noted for, kind of throughout history. When you talk about studying the, you know, the predominant history, right? But the significance of Juneteenth was lost on my generation. It really was. And so, just for our listening audience's benefit, technically, what Juneteenth is all about is, we know that President Lincoln freed the slaves, right, in 1865, but that's not historically accurate. The Emancipation Proclamation was actually executed in 1863, and because there was no internet, because there was no telephones, hey, pick up the phone and tell everybody what was going on. You got word out through a courier, right, which is a guy on a horse. So you sent people out to tell people, hey, look, this emancipation has been signed. The war is actually over. Some slave owners decided to just, ignore it and just keep slaves working. And then what happened in 1865, in June 19th of 1865, was historically the last plantation that had slaves still working were notified by the major who was responsible for getting word out that the war was over and that the slaves should be freed. And so that's really the date that we should celebrate, and not just people of color, but everyone should celebrate freedom. Like there is no more slavery. Like we're all free. So anyway, that's excellent perspective. Now I'm a big sports fan. I've got some best of stuff on my list. Monique, I know you're a former ball player.
Yeah.
But I want to jump into some sports stuff, man. NASCAR, I was actually a fan as a child.
Oh, that's on my list too, Keith.
As a little kid, I was a big NASCAR fan. Richard Petty was actually my favorite driver. He was known as the king of NASCAR, stock car racing, I should say. And so the significance of what's happened over the course of the last few weeks is really huge. And that is that, number one, a lot of people don't know, they know the name Bubba Wallace now, but what they don't realize is that Richard Petty actually gave him his car and his image and his number and his brand. And in NASCAR, that's huge. So Richard Petty probably grew up on the other side of the railroad tracks from us, decided to give this young brother his whole image. So Bubba Wallace made a statement saying that NASCAR should eliminate flying the Confederate flag throughout the events, which is huge. So that's obviously a best of. Now we can talk about the other stuff too, but what do you guys give us your perspective on that whole NASCAR?
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't know. A lot of the viewers probably don't know. I actually grew up in Charlotte, which is home NASCAR. So while I've never been a particular fan of NASCAR, I really didn't know, the drivers other than like the big ones. It was still a huge part of the culture of Charlotte. I mean, a lot of people have taken field trips to NASCAR Speedway, that whole thing. So I kind of, my ears perked when I heard about Bubba Wallace and what has happened and them banning Confederate flags. And of course, seeing, people, the vitriol, from white people who are mad that they can no longer, fly their Confederate flag. So, it's interesting. I'm curious to see what that does to the culture and economy of Charlotte in terms of who supports NASCAR, because Black people weren't huge supporters of NASCAR before, but I'm sure not just in Charlotte but all around the world that's going to change now. So I'm excited to see this resurgence of support for NASCAR.
Yeah. Monique, what do you think about what happened?
Yeah, so as you know, I'm a big sports fan, but honestly, just like Alicia said, I wasn't always a big fan of NASCAR growing up, and it really just came from a lack of knowledge or really about history or any of it, and representation. The time I was growing up, I didn't see a lot of Black what are they called? Racers. Oh my goodness. I didn't see a lot of Black racers growing up. So it wasn't like in my face enough for me to like want to get into the sport. My biggest kind of knowledge about it was really with the movie Talladega Nights, to be honest. Like there's to say that, but like that was my like, oh, okay, this is a thing. Like, let me look into it a little bit. But still it didn't go too much further than that for me. So but I did know that, their audience there is largely white, so to know that Bubba Wallace, you have this African American racer who took a stand, called it out. That was like, okay, let me look into this. Like, I didn't even know that. Honestly, I didn't know he existed up until he took a stand. So absolutely. that says a problem in and of itself for me. So when he did that, then they banned the Confederate flag. I was just like, oh wow, like that is huge. Just knowing the history, of NASCAR and racism, and also just the Confederate flag within their organization. So that to me was just like, wow, if they're willing to stand in solidarity,
And they've done more support
There's no
for Bubba
excuse,
Wallace
you
than
know?
NFL has done for Kaepernick in the last 5 years. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm side-eyeing the NFL like, this is how y'all should have responded. So
Wow.
Well, I think people have been side-eyeing the NFL for some
for a
years
while.
now.
Yeah.
So Monique, you mentioned solidarity. One of the things that happened that is probably one of the best of best ofs
Mhm.
around the Bubba Wallace story was, we heard that someone had hung a noose in the garage. Whether they hung it for him or it had already been there, is regardless. It was a noose. When the picture was finally was finally when the picture finally came out. I mean, it was clear that's what it was. But in the heels of the backlash from the whole Confederate flag waving, etc., the drivers. Now, again, not growing up NASCAR fan, most people aren't aware that there's positions. So you line up, qualify, and your car is lined up by positions. And what the drivers decided to do during kind of doing the prelims, if you will, was take Bubba's car and push it, like manually push his car all the way to the front of the line, symbolically. And all of them got out their cars and they were walking behind them in a show of solidarity. So we can all kind of question these guys' hearts and their backgrounds and whatever their lived experiences were, but just to be able to do something like that nationally absolutely was one of my best ofs for the month. And we got a long way to go. We got a long way to go in NASCAR. So all right, well, Alicia, what you got, man?
Man, listen. So I have to turn it over to music because I love music, and y'all probably already know what I'm about to say.
No.
So I have 4 kind of best roll into one, and I'm gonna rank them.
Okay.
One is the release of the album Ungodly Hour by Chloe and Halle. They are the sisters. They were signed to Beyonce's record label a few years ago. They came out with their first album, The Kids Are Alright. If anybody watches Grownish, the spinoff from Blackish, they played the twins. And they also recorded the intro song to Grownish. I love them. I love The Kids Are Alright. So when they announced that this new album was coming out, I was like, I already know it's about to be perfect. And it was. And it features the hit single "Do It" that you probably heard on the radio.
Love that song.
Yeah, so it's amazing. What I will say is that like it's kind of from the perspective. So people have been tying it to Beyonce's Lemonade and Solange's A Seat at the Table in like 444. So you have like all those different angles of like what happened, and then like Ungodly Hour comes in kind of from this like perspective of the mistress. And so people have been saying like, oh, it's like connecting like the triangle / square. But I mean, it has songs outside of that too. But it's I love it. Give it a listen. I don't, no matter what age you are, I think you will enjoy it. The second is probably what the most popular is. My girl Beyonce put out Black Parade, a song. Like
I love her.
Everybody know, I'm unapologetically Beehive. Like, I love Beyonce. Do I defend everything with Beyonce? No. But she just can't miss, and I don't think she missed with Black Parade. It's a homage to like Blackness, celebrating Blackness, and of course encouraging us to like buy our own. And with that, all the proceeds from the song went to support Black businesses. And when she released the song, she also released the page on her website with a ton of Black businesses. I actually went to school with someone who was featured on in one of her as a designer on one of her on the page. And so now it made me realize that she was also isn't just calling out these big brands. She was calling out like small Black owned businesses. And so that's definitely on my best list. And then actually I'm gonna leave off the 2 others for now because I just realized the magnitude of the first 2. I would say
heavyweight. Okay,
I know it was heavyweight. It was heavyweight. Go stream Ungodly Hour and Black Parade if you haven't already. But I will just throw in really quickly. Tiana Taylor also came out with an album, and I love Tiana Taylor. And then Meg Thee Stallion, because we got to support our female rappers out here. Also just released a song too. So go stream them. I'll leave it at that because I could talk about them forever, and then we'll be at the end of the show.
No. And to piggyback off of that really quick before we get off the topic of Beyonce, because everyone knows I am a founding member, not a founding member, excuse me. I am a member of Beehive as well. Beyonce is also getting recognized at the BET Awards tomorrow for the Humanitarian Award for her Be Good Foundation and all the work that she is doing, not just in the community, but in the Black community specifically. So again, I could talk about Beyonce all day long. That's another call. But yeah, that's what
Listen, we got about 5 minutes before we go into break. So Monique, go ahead and give us another one of yours, and we'll take that into the break.
Okay, well, since Alicia tackled the topic of music, I'm gonna go into entertainment and definitely talk about Insecure season 5 that aired this month. I had to do it. Sorry, Keith, but he's like, really? That's where you went? No, but I had to do it. Shout out to Issa Rae and all the amazing actors in that series. But I say that not just because I love the show, but also because I think this season they really went there as far as Black culture, and they always do. But just the issues they brought to the light. For example, like what is it called? After like postpartum depression. After a woman, gives labor, which is a big deal in the Black community. Then also with Nathan's character, the character of Nathan, I'm blanking on his real name at the moment. Just with him even saying that he has bipolar depression, that's also a big stigma in the Black community, especially among men and women, but especially among Black men, that is kind of, like it's something wrong if we go to therapy, if we seek out counsel. It's typical for Black people to just be like, oh, just go to church, like that's our therapy. But it's also, as someone who goes to therapy, like it's really beneficial. I go to church and therapy, so it's necessary. So I love that they went there with this season. But then we're also still seeing, this embodiment of Black love, and our culture as well. There's some statistics around that with marriages, divorce, etc., premarital sex, etc. So it just really is. I love that they just kind of went there and shown that, okay, these Black people are human, like we go through these things as well. But it still ended on a high note.
Did it? Ish.
Oh.
I mean, we're not supposed to drop a spoiler. I don't know if we want to drop the spoiler. It has been 2 weeks. I feel like we ain't seen it by now.
Drop them. If they haven't seen it by now, that's their fault.
Right. So actually, Insecure was on my best and my worst list. The best list for the exact same reasons you mentioned, like highlighting Black love, talking about postpartum depression in women, and even also talking about the way that women are treated when they're giving birth. Because I actually don't remember. I think it might have been last season that they touched on this. But Tiffany's husband, whose name I don't know why I'm blanking on, even mentioned mentioned that like when they were in the hospital, like the doctors were like trying not to listen to what he was saying. He had to like cuss them out, and that's a huge problem. We've heard Beyonce, Serena Williams, like we've heard so many Black celebrities talk about how they weren't being listened to. So what do you think that's happening to like common Black women who are also saying like, I was giving birth and they were not listening to me? So shout out to Insecure for highlighting that. Shout out to them also for highlighting mental illness with Black men. And one thing I do like about them portraying the bipolar disorder with Nathan is that people think of bipolar and they think of somebody who's like really erratic and like they're like super mad one minute and then like depressed another minute, and like it's just, and I think the way that they displayed it with him is like it doesn't always look like what the stereotypical like bipolar person looks like. It does look like ghosting someone but coming back, and like the highs and lows don't always look like this extreme, but it's still a very real thing. So yeah, the only thing, and I know we're going into the break. The reason why I hit my in 30 seconds, the reason why I hit my low list is like, why did y'all make that girl pregnant at the end?
Oh yeah, I knew that though. Come on, we all knew that. I saw that like 3 episodes ago.
We saw it, but then we let it go because he was like, he talked to her and they were good, but then she came back being pregnant. I hate Condola.
Well, listen, guys. This is good stuff, man. I love that we pivoted to entertainment. We're going to go to break in a second, and when we come back, I want to hit a couple more things in sports, because I do think for any of you who saw the ESPY Awards, they were all about social justice this year. I thought ESPN did an outstanding job. So when we come back out of the break, we're going to get into some politics. We're going to get into some coronavirus. We're going to get into a little bit more about sports, hopefully more about entertainment. You guys are doing a fantastic job. I really appreciate y'all joining us. Listeners, we appreciate y'all joining us on the Soul Purpose Show. We are going to go to break, and we'll see you in a couple of moments.
Wherever we go, we are about to bring on the positive vibe. Wherever we go, we
This is Mario Andretti. You know me as a race car driver, but I'm also a Meals on Wheels volunteer. I've raced against the sport's biggest personalities, but I've never met more vibrant, amazing people than the seniors served by Meals on Wheels. You can make a difference by dropping off a hot meal and saying a quick hello. So, America, let's do lunch. Volunteer your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them online are cruel and they're not true. So tell your friend, I'll stand up for you. Don't worry, I know what to do.
Know someone being bullied online? You can be a witness and make a difference by letting the world know it isn't cool and by letting your friend know you care. Learn more at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
It may be hard to believe, but people just like you are already saving money. FeedThePig.org makes it easy. Their simple savings plan teaches you how to start saving without going overboard, so you don't need to start foraging wild berries.
I was skeptical, but these are actually pretty good.
You don't need to sell your soul to the devil.
$15 is the best I can do.
You just need FeedThePig.org. Don't get left behind. Get tips and tools at FeedThePig.org. Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all got to see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
Wherever we go, we about to bring on the positive vibe. Wherever we go, we are gonna do
All right. Hey, welcome back to the Soul Purpose Show. We had a really outstanding first half hour of our show. Joining me today usually would be my lovely wife, my co-host, and my life partner, my rib, Monica, who's on assignment today, trying to change the world. Actually on the task force, talking about police policy. So we're really proud of her. But joining me is my outstanding, dynamic, revolutionary daughter, Alicia Choi, and Monique Welch, one of a brilliant young journalist coming up in the Tampa Bay area. So we're just pleased to have them. We talked a lot of the first half hour. Obviously, we're focused on social justice on Black issues, but we covered sports, we covered entertainment, and I just wanted to. I would be remiss because we were shouting out NASCAR for how they are handling and embracing the whole Bubba Wallace issue. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention that they announced last week too that brother by the name of Brandon Thompson is the new Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion. So Black Enterprise reported that. Now, he's actually been with NASCAR for years. He started out as an intern about 17 years ago, just kind of worked his way up. But he will be officially the first minority to join the executive team. So with NASCAR. So I like how y'all put into perspective, the side eye that the NFL is getting. And look, and I love the NFL. I'm a football fan. I'm a Bucks fan, and I know Monique. I know you're doing some work highlighting and featuring the Bucks as well. But I just wanted to make sure that we covered that as well. So, but you guys were rolling. Entertainment, sports, like what you got, man?
Well, listen, I have to kind of go back to music for a little bit, and I actually don't know if Monique will know about this, but there was a little bit of beef happening in the rap industry between J. Cole. Well, beef, no beef, whatever. But between J. Cole, a North Carolina rapper, and a Chicago-based rapper, No Name, previously No Name Gypsy. She's a female rapper. And basically, and maybe this is something that people only like in that are heavy into rap would even got into, but I think it posed a larger issue right now of support of like Black men with Black women during this time as we're protesting. As you know, we're still trying to get justice for Breonna Taylor, and while we've started to make a little bit of headway with like Ahmaud. So basically what happened was, I think No Name like tweeted out, I think this is like over a month ago now, that, rappers, something to the effect of like your favorite rappers are at home doing nothing while like Black people are marching in the streets.
Wow.
And so J. Cole, who is a huge, rapper now, I guess took offense, thought I was like subtweeting him, and released a song, basically saying, "Hey, Queen," which I feel like Queen can be used, either way. You need to like, monitor your tone when you're saying things. Not everybody can speak that language. Basically, I feel like he was in his feelings. Read the lyrics if you want to kind of get, but basically, both the one side is that he was saying that, and not everybody has like the academic language to engage in these political debates, like you are, and that you have to watch your tone, speak to me. He actually like said, like, speak to me like I'm a child so that I can get on board with what you're saying. And No Name, actually also responded with a song saying like, hey, we out here still trying to like get justice for Breonna Taylor. The patriarchy is, really something else right now. Basically, let's go. I don't have to coddle you. So I thought that was actually on my worst list, because I think that kind of brought out the worst in the unity that we're trying to achieve right now between Black and white. I mean, not Black and white, between men and women, Black men and women. But yeah, so I thought it was kind of weak on J. Cole to come at that. I've seen both sides of the argument, but I do think that as we are moving forward in unity, that we are kind of more respectful of each other. And so this is me speaking very, and my father knows me, this is me speaking very like neutrally about what about this situation, because I can go in, but yeah, so I just want us to be better moving forward and be more respectful of each other.
That's a great point, because this is one of those times where I think, and you guys were mentioning earlier, like this is a pivotal point, for us, because we now have the ear of white America, of corporate America, of the world, really. I mean, Black folks, are really in the spotlight. So the last thing we need is to be tearing each other down, during this period of time. So yeah, so that's a great observation, and I appreciate you sharing with me, because no, I wasn't aware. Now you give me a homework assignment, and I got to go back and just try.
You got to go listen to both. You got to go listen.
I try to stay relevant. I try to stay relevant.
Monique. I think you're talking about, is that the Snow in the Bluff song that?
Yes. So his song is Snow in the Bluff. And
so
then
I listened to that very ignorantly, not knowing that it had this pre-context before it. So now, like you said, just like Keith, I'm gonna have to do my homework. So thank you.
Yeah.
What you got, Monique?
Yes. So wait, are we still going through the best? I think we're kind of jumping. Are we?
We can do worst. We can do best. Okay. Yeah, don't make it.
Okay, gotcha. I put this on kind of best and worst, and this is kind of local. So if we have some listeners that are outside of Tampa Bay, it's also a brief education for you. But on yesterday, we reported the first coffin was uncovered at Tampa's Lost and Forgotten Zion Cemetery.
Oh wow! Tell everyone what the Zion Cemetery is.
Many of you don't know, it was a all-Black, primarily black cemetery that was basically erased in the early 1900s. Don't quote me on the exact year. I believe it was 1906. But basically, white developers built land over these coffins, and there were still, deceased of many Black Americans there. So basically they got erased and forgotten. Our reporter Paul Guzzo, I'd be remiss if I didn't shout him out for his groundbreaking work in discovering this. But basically, they got a tip about this from a historian, and that's what kind of made him look into this. He, at least 9 months, I think, worked on this project. But when it came out, it was earth-shattering locally here. So, of course, this raised a uprising of just disgust and sadness and just, I mean, the emotions. And this was a year ago when this happened, when the news broke. So just you can imagine the emotion that brings out from, and not just Black people, you know, even some city council members, the mayor. They created basically a full task force and advisory to specifically honor these people, right? And so now they're kind of in the digging portion of that, and so they're at work. They finally cleared out where this land is at Robles Park Village. Mm-hmm. So they cleared everyone out. That's kind of what took the longest, because they had to get everyone out and properly honor these individuals. So they cleared everyone out. Now they're in the process of actually finding these graves. And we weren't even allowed, of course we were there, but our photographers weren't even allowed to take a picture of the coffin out of respect. We took a picture of just the imprint you can see in the dirt. But yeah, actually, obviously a very touchy subject. So I said that's best and worst, because, okay, we found them. We're doing the right thing now. Yep. Worst that we even have to, you know, like this is even a thing. So
we're going to see a lot more of that too, because, you know, this is the South, and we know that happened a lot. And we know that it is, it's just going to continue to happen. And I have a personal connection as well, because I graduated high school from King High School, and on the grounds of King High School was where one of the burial grounds was found. So it would have meant a lot to, and we had a pretty large percentage of Black students there. We probably still do at King, based on kind of the demographic, and it would have meant a lot to us, I think, as young, impressionable people, to know that our school was really kind of built on this kind of sacred burial ground. So
I mean, talk about a history class.
Yep, absolutely. But we appreciate that reference. Alicia, what you got, man?
Mine is another worst. And it is the openings that have the openings of states that have led to increased cases of coronavirus. Mm-hmm. But why I say it's a worse for us in Black culture is because, as people should know, coronavirus disproportionately affects, you know, Black and brown communities. And so, you know, we're seeing an increased number of cases for us, namely because we're usually frontline workers, which are now being called like essential workers. We're working the grocery stores. We're, you know, we're a lot of nurses. And I think my biggest frustration is seeing people complain about wearing masks. And I just, you know, like, we went from like stay home, don't go anywhere, you know, only go out when absolutely needed, to saying like, okay, we understand we're not going to keep y'all home, but at least if you go out, wear a mask. Like, right. Like, just wear some kind of face covering so that if you are positive, you're not spreading the virus. And so, and then now we have like these anti-mask or no mask rallies happening across the country. We have people that just flat out refuse to wear masks. And these are not just, I mean, they're mostly white people, but I mean, these are Black people too that are saying that like they feeling like they're not having to wear masks. And so I think that's the worst, because we're only going to see more and more cases as, and thankfully states are starting to shut back down. I think I saw Florida, or maybe you told me that Florida was shutting down bars. Now
they stopped the sale of alcohol at bars.
Yeah, so I don't know, North Carolina yesterday was Friday. At 5 p.m. started a mandatory mask policy. So if you were out in public at all, even if you were outside, you have to have on a mask. And so I think that as states I think we'll see a lot more of that, like states implementing like requiring mask policies. My only call to that, and I was kind of talking to someone about this on Twitter, is that One, I think instead of using the terminology mask, they should use the terminology face coverings, because you can use like a bandana or a t-shirt, something simple, to cover your face. And I think it's just as effective. Or it has been said to be just as effective. And two, that they are mass producing and making available for free masks or face coverings to the public, so that people can get them. And actually, three is that it's not criminalized. And so we don't want to see, people going to jail over not having masks on. I don't think that's something that should be criminalized, especially when you think about how fast it's spreading in prisons and in jails, because you have so many people in close quarters. So that would just not, that wouldn't make sense anyway. And so, here's to hoping that is the kind of policy that we see moving forward with this. But I wholeheartedly stand behind, states requiring masks, because I mean, it's night and day in terms of like the transmission when you have a mask versus when you don't have a mask.
Yeah, and one of the things we pride ourselves on this show is really kind of giving people useful information and really giving them facts. And the facts are that, yes, masks have shown, or any kind of face coverings have shown, to significantly decrease the chances of spreading the virus, because if you have it, and you're wearing a face covering, then most of what causes the virus to be spread stays in your mask.
Right.
And so if everyone is doing it, then I think the number is around 70% decreases the chance of spreading the virus. And it is absolutely one of the worst things on my list as well, because as my home state of Florida likes to set records, we're now setting records with virus cases such that the governor, made that decree. But the other thing that's on my worst list is that's really kind of starting from the top. Y'all's president said that if we just slow down the testing, then the cases would go away, which is kind of true, because if we just stop testing people, we'd eventually all catch it and die. And eventually the cases would go away. What is wrong with him? Why does he say that kind of stuff?
He's an idiot. I saw someone respond like, yes, and if we stop taking pregnancy tests, we will have
it's amazing.
We will decrease the number of pregnancies if we stop testing for. Anyway, it's he's an idiot, and I will lead into this, and this is another kind of like worst but also call to action, is that we have got to vote this man out in November. Like, we just have to. And I will say, like, it's we have seen in June and in previous months who have had primary elections that we have seen like voter suppression happen. And so we just have to, I don't blame Black people, especially knowing that I disenfranchising her, if they end up not being able to vote, because not everyone can take off a day to go and stand in line for 8 hours to vote. However, if you have the capability to vote, if you are, instead of going out to vote, you're sleeping in or you sitting around watching TV all day, like, that to me is unacceptable. And so we have to get this man out, because y'all can't do another 4 years of this. I'm gonna be like Marcus Garvey and be like, I'm just gonna go back. Oh, that's it, which is something that was on my backup best/worst list, is seeing Ghana say like, hey, Black people in America, just come on home, just come on home. They issued a declaration like a few weeks ago. I think it was I don't know if it was the president, but it was somebody, a higher official, just like, listen, African Americans, and it was like in the wake of George Floyd's death, y'all just come back home, like, we'll figure it out. So yeah, that's gonna be me if y'all vote this man in for another 4 years, because I cannot.
Wow.
What you got, man? What can we do? Let's talk about some solutions, man. Like, how can we get beyond this stuff?
I think the only solution is to vote. Yeah. I can't say it enough. I mean, even amongst many of our peers, Alicia, I'm sure, as a millennial, you've heard plenty of people say, oh, I don't think it does anything, or I don't vote. I challenge that. I don't agree with that. It doesn't make sense to me to have this right. As a woman, as a Black woman, that's two strikes right there of demographics that we're not allowed to vote, And
if voting didn't matter, they wouldn't try so hard to keep us from voting. If voting didn't matter, they wouldn't try so hard to keep us from doing it. So
I feel like as long as I'm alive, I'm going to utilize that right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say not just vote, but also if there is a way for you to kind of fight back against voter suppression in your county or in your local elections, or where you are, that also is just as powerful, or not more powerful, because you're ensuring that, grandma, auntie, whatever, who can't do that has the capability to still vote. So, figure out what orgs around you are fighting voter suppression, and get on board and volunteer if you can.
I will also say, and I have to say this obviously because of my profession, but support local newspapers and local journalism that are doing the work to profile these candidates, and look into their backgrounds. Do your research. That's a lot of the main reason why we have the problems that we do, because a lot of people aren't doing their research to really understand, okay, what does this candidate stand for? Do our values align? Are they, what are their views on education? What are their views on criminal justice? So I think it's more than obviously just voting, and it's more than just protesting. It's doing the work, it's doing the research. And we live in a world, everyone's busy, I get it, but it's so crucial. It's too crucial now to not do anything.
Let me ask you ladies a question, because we're obviously looking at two dynamic young women, Black women, who are now you guys are really kind of the voice of the Black Matters movement, the voice of, you're out front, you're very vocal, you're organizing the protest. What kind of messages would you have for young brothers who are out there seeing y'all and seeing y'all like taking these leadership roles? How do you get because look, these cats want to be with y'all, like they're trying to get with you, right? So what do you tell them with respect to the importance of being socially conscious and the importance of voting? What's your message to them?
I think a lot of activism for me started before I knew like what to do, started with following the right people on social media. And that sounds like, I know social media has started off with a bad rap and like it was fake news and you just didn't know what was reliable. But honestly, now we're kind of in a time now where you kind of have to rely on social media sometimes more than what you might see on TV, especially given who's in the office right now, and what they're saying, to kind of get credible news sources and get credible things that are happening in your community. So I think finding good people to follow on Twitter and, doing your research. I mean, you can do your research on them to make sure that they're aligning with your beliefs, but I think it kind of takes that work, that initial work, like figure out like, what are you passionate about? Are you passionate about education? Are you passionate about criminal justice? Do that Google search, like who is doing the work right now in education? What are the viewpoints right now? Like figure out your own beliefs. Like, what do I believe in based off like what I read and what my personal experiences are and what I value? I think that is important first, because you don't want to be led in a million different directions, because everyone has their own idea about what should be done. So, figure out what your core beliefs are and kind of go from there in terms of like who you follow, and then use who you follow to figure out what you're going to read, or maybe use what you read to determine who you follow. And figure out what organizations are doing the work in your community, and you just simply ask them like, how can I get involved? What can I do as someone with limited resources, which young people usually have limited resources, can do? And usually it's something as simple as calling up your local congressman, calling up your local mayor, calling up whoever and saying like, hey, I am a resident of so-and-so, this is what I believe. And just remembering that they are there to represent you. They are a public servant, which means they are there to serve you, not the other way around. I think that's a big misconception when you kind of think about politics. So I think those are the first like few things you have to do to really get involved and, make your voice heard.
So we have a couple minutes before we come to the end of our show. I want to give Monique an opportunity to look. This thing might be viewed 3,000 or 4,000 times, and if y'all share it with y'all's friends, it's going to be viewed like 100,000 times. So. So what's your message? What's your message to young Black Americans, especially young brothers out there who are trying to kind of figure this thing out?
Yeah, I would just say stay the course. This is not, this is a war. It's not a battle. You got to keep fighting, right? Progress doesn't It doesn't happen. Change doesn't happen overnight. Progress isn't made. Rome wasn't built in a day. So I know it can be very mentally draining, but also just, I'm gonna kind of echo what Alicia said, honestly, just really take initiative to invest your time, invest your energy, not just in the Black dollar. A lot of people are, oh, I supported Black business, I'm good. That's great, but there's so much more work to be done. So taking that initiative to educate yourself, and that goes beyond, just having your degree or degrees on the wall, or even if you don't have a degree, you can still educate yourself. I just don't think there's any excuses right now. So take that initiative, be a leader, speak up on what you're passionate about, what you agree with, what you don't agree with. And like she said, do the education to learn your elected officials. I think a lot of people, again, I'm going to go back to voting, but aside from voting, on a national level, I'm really an advocate of voting locally, because on such that large of a scale, it's really not a lot of things that, people like me in my little Tampa Bay bubble can really affect. So, but locally, we can make a change and we can make an impact. And if everyone is doing their job locally, then think about what that does to the top. So that's what I'm going to say. Make sure you know, okay, who's your state, who's your, district attorney, who's your mayor. All these people that are making these decisions for, let's just say, if you get into an incident, if you are protesting and you are arrested, you need to know who these people are that have your life basically in their hands. So just taking that initiative, I think is what I know Black women want to see and Black men should be doing already. We just really have to carry ourselves on our back.
Black women.
One another.
Men don't know everything.
And support Black women, really.
Listen, I support you guys. I got to tell you, man, y'all really make me proud. I think our listeners feel the same way. I mean, at the end of the day, we're really looking at our future. I mean, our future is in your hands, and it's just it's so gratifying. I know we got a hard stop. I told you guys this hour would fly, but
it really did. And I had one more really important thing that I wanted to mention that was on my worst list. I don't know if we have time, but I'll shout out real quick.
Really quick, 15 seconds, go.
Okay, so if you guys didn't hear, the young lady, 18-year-old, her name's Althea Bernstein. I hope I'm not mispronouncing it, but in Madison, Wisconsin, she's a Black woman. She basically was set on fire by white men. So that happened not too long ago. I think June 24th. That made my worst list for obvious reasons. For sure.
Yeah, guys, we got a long way to go. I'd love to have you guys come back and join us. I can't thank you enough for joining the Soul Purpose Show. Listeners, tag us, go to our Facebook page, share, like. We appreciate you. We will see you next week. 4th of July, we got something really, really special. Alicia and Monique, thank you guys. We're out.
Thank you so much.
Guys. Thank you, Monique.
Thank you.